Good morning, everybody. Fresh off of the presses, we have the Rise of Dragonlord patch notes for update 66 coming out February 28th, which as of time of recording is tomorrow. So that is the anniversary event coming out. We have the new Dragonlord coming out, the beginning of Dungeons & Dragons 50th anniversary, and a whole bunch of stuff. This is a long series of patch notes, so get your morning cup of coffee if you're watching in the morning. Get some, some licorice or some popcorn in the afternoon. It's going to be a bit of a long one. I'm going to do my best to summarize here, so I'm not going to go over everything, but give you the gist of it so you kind of understand. So first is the Dragonlord archetype. Every single month for the rest of the entire year, SSG is going to be giving away one thing each month that you will claim at a guy called Zerathal in the Hall of Heroes. You have to claim it to get it. So if you don't log in before March 26th, then you don't claim it, you won't get the item. So this month, it's Dragonlord. Dragonlord will not be free to play. It will be something you have to buy in the store, as well as being VIP. However, just claim it. Log in, get Dragonlord. If you're wondering if it's worth it to do it, maybe you don't have DDO on your computer, Dragonlord is going to be very powerful, and also it's free, and DDO is like 17 gigabytes. Just put it on the computer and get yourself some Dragonlord. Now, on top of that, they're also going to be giving something away every single month, and they will be making more posts about it. I did a video about Year of the Dragon Celebration. There's a link here, and I'll put a link in the description in case you want to see more. But this is also the start of the anniversary event on the 28th. For those of you that don't know, there's like a special anniversary dungeon where they celebrate stuff. I'm assuming they actually updated the place, because they have the bosses are there, all the different raid bosses are standing around, and they have a lot of fun jokes and stuff, and there's some cool things you can get from the anniversary event, so I'll probably talk about that in a future video. But it's in House Fjarlin, kind of where you get the House P buffs from Hardcore and stuff, so that's, you'll find it around there if you're not sure. And they're also giving away a Dark Armor cosmetic. What does it look like? I don't know. Oh no, it's not. There's a new anniversary event, and the Dark Armor cosmetic is now added to the list. Never mind. I don't know what they're giving away. We're going to find out. I'll probably make a video about it in the future. So, Dragonlord. What exactly is it? The best way I can describe it is a offensive, tactics-based fighter. So, you give up shields. You can't use shields so that you don't get the Vanguard tree like Fighter usually does. And you don't get Kensai, because Kensai is about like focus and meditation. And Dragonlord is more about killing people outright. So you get the Dragonlord tree, and you also get Ravager from Barbarian. However, the Barbarian Ravager is different in that anything that says Rage just doesn't say Rage anymore. So it's just Fighter. Anything that would say, oh, spend a Barbarian Rage to do X, you just don't. You just cast it as a Fighter, which is perfectly fine. You also get the Draconic Aura. Now, this is one of the major features of the character. The Draconic Aura basically means that at level 1, 8, and 16, there's 3 different auras. You get to choose a passive, and it's like a little ring around the feet of your character, and it buffs you and all your friends that are nearby. On top of that, the bonuses also increase as you put points into the Dragonlord tree in general. I think you get an extra +5 to all of these bonuses, so it gets pretty good pretty quick. Now, bear in mind, these are morale bonuses, so they don't stack with other morale bonuses. So as an example, level 1, you can take Neville Larich's Hunger, which gives you an ally's +2 morale bonus to attack rolls. This doesn't stack with Heroism, or Greater Heroism, which is a pretty common buff that most people have. So this one's not as good. But this will eventually go up to +7 if you max it out, and an extra +3 to hit isn't terrible considering it's a aura. However, stuff like Tactics DCs literally doesn't even exist. There is nothing that gives a morale bonus to Tactics DCs. So this is a +7 to you and all your friends if you haven't maxed out, which is quite nice. At level 8, you get a second aura, either taking damage, PRR, or MRR. And then you get your tertiary aura, which is melee power, range power, or spell power. And again, these will all increase as you put points in the Dragonlord tree. They also look different around your feet. Each aura that you pick has like a different visual around your character's feet when you're standing still. And they all look pretty cool. And they're just passive. You don't have to turn them on. In fact, they're not even something you have to like actually turn on. They're just, when you select it, around your feet, there it is. Now, quick thing about the Ravager tree, just to make sure it's understood. Yeah, it's basically the same thing as the Barbarian Ravager, it's just nothing has to do with raging. Oh, and also the amount of hit points you get out of Ravager got cut down compared to Barbarian Ravager, and the main reason they did that is because if they didn't do that, then Dragonlord would be the best tank in the entire game with no questions, because it's Fighter, which is already a good tank, but instead of getting Kensai, which is okay, or not Kensai, or Vanguard, which is okay, you would get Ravager, which gives you like hundreds of extra hit points. So they cut that down a little bit, so that way Dragonlord is not the absolute best tank in the whole game by a pretty wide margin. Now it's still just very, very good at that. Now they also did generally update the Ravager tree, which comes in a couple places. First, Cruel Cut, which was a terrible ability that did basically nothing, is now a pretty good ability. It's got a 6-second cooldown instead of 30, and it has a bunch of new effects. I'm not going to go over this, but it's now actually something you would want to take and press the keyboard to actually use. The biggest change is in Visage of Terror, which is the big ability. It's the capstone of Ravager. Basically, you press a button, and your guy lets out a roar, and anyone that gets scared of you dies instantly. It's very cool. The ability used to be based off of Barbarian level and Constitution, which meant it wouldn't really scale properly into epics, so they've changed it. So now it's a d20 plus your Intimidate, which makes sense. You're literally scaring people to death, so you're intimidating them. You're like, and there's a bunch of like fear based off of Intimidate stuff already in the tree, so it makes sense. They're giving you flat Intimidate, so you can extra +6 in the tree now to help compensate for the fact that not everybody will be maxing it out. And honestly, getting your Intimidate score to be high is not really that big of a deal. This is very manageable for a lot of characters. So the DC is going to be higher than average on Visage of Terror, and this is not difficult to get this to no fail. For example, there are tanks out there that have like over 140 Intimidate, and you don't need 140, but if you got it, that'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? So Visage of Terror is definitely getting better, and it's going to be pretty cool. So, Dragonlord. I'm not going to go through the tree entirely, so I recommend you give this a look or look at one of the videos I put out in-game. But TLDR, at level 1, you get to pick a dragon soul, and so that's basically your color of dragon. And so you pick one of the colors, and then that will affect other stuff in the tree. So if you pick red, which is fire, then it affects other things, and you get red on top of that. You can respec this at any time, because obviously it's an enhancement tree. So unlike Dragonborn, where you pick your dragon color and you're done, if you're playing Dragonlord and you're leveling with fire and you go, I don't want to do fire anymore, and you want to go blue, you can just respec it. They also get an imbue toggle that gives you damage based on the type of aura that you have, and it scales with 200% of melee and range power, which is very, very powerful. So again, Dragonlord, pretty good imbue, it's pretty nice. And then as you level up, you're going to be picking up bonuses to all your Draconic auras. You can see bonus to Draconic auras here, bonus to Draconic auras, etc., as you go up the tree. Now, the big thing about it is that this is all about tactics DCs. So on the left side of the tree, you have an elemental resistance line that will go up the entire left side. You'll have the battlefield tactician line, which goes up the next line next to that, which gives you tactics DCs, and then a bunch of other stuff. The highlights in the Dragonlord tree is, 1, you can get action boost haste, which is necessary for endgame damage, so pretty cool. Number 2, you can get Dragon's Roar, where it's like a roar that uses your stunning bonuses, and it causes a stun. Well, it's actually a daze. And it turns into a stun in tier 5. It's very, very powerful. It works on Reapers, very valuable for any type of Dragonlord. And they also get a Trance, which is where you get extra damage based on your main stat, and you can either get extra damage based off of your Strength, which cannot be used while raging, so that way you don't have like the Barbarian builds that are already with 140 Strength, double dipping and getting this Trance, or you can get the Charisma as a trance here to get bonus to attack, damage, and DC of tactical feats, so it's quite powerful. Additionally, you get bonuses, so that way when you use Trip or Sunder, you're doing extra damage based on your element to enemies, and you can get it even better, so that way if you trip or if you Sunder a tripped target, you get even more bonuses. And on top of that, when you Sunder an enemy, you strip the immunity of the element of your Draconic Soul. So let's say you want to play like a cold dragon, but there's a lot of cold immune monsters, like skeletons. That kind of sucks. Here, you can actually use Sunder to strip off the cold immunity, and it works really, really well. I tested it on the preview. It was very effective, and yeah, it just allows you as a Dragonlord to either support someone in your party. So if you're playing like with a wizard and you want to strip fire immunity off a fire giant, you can do that for them, or just for yourself. It's very, very convenient. It just means you have to have those Sunder DCs. So Dragonlords are generally going to be strength based because Trip and Sunder are based off of strength. Bear in mind, anything in here that says Trip or Sunder or improved Trip or Sunder only works off of those things. So if you like trip a guy through the rogue trip from Thief Acrobat, or if you trip a guy from the Dire Charge effect in Legendary Dreadnought in Epics, those don't count. This is Trip and Sunder. So if you ever wanted to fill out that like dream of actually pushing those buttons you get at level 1, this tree is for you, and it's very effective. And then tier 5, you get like a bunch of damage and defense and some other stuff. Most important thing is, not most important thing, but the coolest thing is the capstone. It's called Sundered Soul. If a monster is sundered, so you have to sunder them with Sunder or improved Sunder, then you can sunder their soul. So you sunder them, and then you hit them with Sunder Soul, which is a very short cooldown. I think it's like 30 seconds or something. And if they fail their save, a giant claw comes out of the ground and swoop and swipes them and instantly kills them. It's very, very cool looking. It's kind of hard to use because DDO has a very short time to kill. And so you have to Sunder and then Sundered Soul and hope that your damage won't kill them, because Dragonlords do a fair amount of damage. But in higher difficulty content, this will become more valuable, because you can go into a room, Dragon Breath to stun, or Draconic Roar to stun everything, then Sunder Soul. If you have a two-hander with Strike Through, all of a sudden, boom, you're hitting multiple targets, and you just instantly killed a bunch of things as like a fighter. So overall, very cool. It's really, really good for multi-classing as well, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how people want to work with this. 3 levels of Dragonlord gets you the trance. 16 levels of Dragonlord gets you all of the auras. So we'll see. I'm very excited, and I'm going to be putting out a lot of Dragonlord builds very, very soon. However, before we do that, we have to talk about the ranged area of effect attack system. So this is another pretty big topic of discussion. So basically, the ranged area of effect system is changing so that there's going to be range attacks that just hit in an area. So you know how when you think about range attacks in a video game, let's say you've started playing Last Epoch recently, and you were playing the rogue character and you use Cinder Strike, where you shoot an arrow and it explodes, dealing damage to all nearby enemies, and you're like, man, I wish we could do that in DDO. That's how it's going to work. That's how all of these are going to work. So they're changing several attacks to be area attacks, where the arrow will hit a target and then it'll explode, dealing AoE damage, which is basically how cleave works, right? Like a frontal cleave, except at ranged. These attacks, having tested them out, are very satisfying to use. It feels so much better than the old system of trying to improve precise shot. Now, improve precise shot is still in the game, bear in mind, so if you like improve precise shot, you don't have to change off of that, but these area of effect attacks only hit the first target, so you can't have an area of effect like go through the line and blow up everything, so keep that in mind. So a lot of abilities were changed, and there's a whole heap and helping list here. So starting out, Scattershot in Horizon Walker. This ability was terrible. What it would do is, instead of firing 3 shots like Many Shot, 1, 2, 3, and hit a target, it would fire 3 shots, 1, 2, 3, and hit 3 targets nearby. The problem is, due to range desync and targeting issues, oftentimes you'd maybe hit 2 targets, maybe 1 target, and you'd only get 1 of your 3 arrows off, or 2 of your 3 arrows. Now, it just works like you would think. You shoot a guy, it hits him, and then it explodes, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. Overall, very, very cool change. And the list goes on. For Artificer, you have Battle Engineer, you have Shadow Defenses and Thundershock weapons, which will work with crossbows or like any other ranged weapon. On top of that, unlike other ranged weapons, fires as many crossbow bolts as your crossbow allows. Oh, they changed it. So now Shadow Defenses and Thundershock weapons are just AoE, and you can fire your whole crossbow shot. So if you have a repeating crossbow, 1, 2, 3 AoE shots, very cool. Paladin, Exalted Shot, and Avenging Shot are the cleaves, Exalted Cleave and Avenging Cleave. These are now also AoE if you use them with a bow, which is very cool. In Elven, Arcane, and Ranger, Arcane Archer, they have Inferno Shot, which you get very early. It costs 6 spell points, but it does an AoE fire shot now. And then Final Strike is now AoE. They should probably rename this from Final Strike, considering that people are going to be opening with Final Strike, and it adds stacks of vulnerability, which are going to be opening with. So they should probably call this like Opening Shot or something like that. I don't know, but whatever, it's fine. It does a bunch of damage. Headshot in Ranger is now called Devastating Shot, and it's an auto crit. So it's an area of effect that auto crits, and it can blind the targets, which is very cool. Divine Vessel from Warsoul and Warpriest is an area of effect. Fatesinger's Arrow of Discord is area of effect. Legendary Dreadnought's Dire Shot, Legendary Rally are area of effect. Shadow Dancer's Shadow Strike ranged is area of effect, which is very powerful. And Pin from Shirati Champion is area of effect. Additionally, Pin is now turning into the Epic Strike, which we're going to talk about in a bit because they're doing a bunch of changes to Epic Destinies. But basically, this means that all of your characters will have access to a shot. Now, the one downside to this one is some classes and weapon types don't have access to AoE unless they kind of multi-class a bit. Inquisitives have to dip into Artificer to get access to Shadow Defenses if they want an AoE before level 20. Rogues, same thing, have to dip into Artificer to get an AoE before 20 if they want to use like great crossbows or anything, and the throwers as well. So if you're somebody that doesn't want to use a bow, your option is Artificer with Battle Engineer or Headshot from Deepwood Stalker, which is of course the tier 5. But if you want to use a bow, you have a lot of other options before 20, and you can kind of play around with it. I hope that they expand upon the system and maybe add some more changes, but again, we'll wait and see how this goes. Overall though, I am TRing into a ranged character day 1 because I told the developers that if they made Inferno Shot AoE, so I'd have Fireball Arrow, which is what I've always wanted. I've just wanted Fireball Arrow for a long time. I was live and I said, hey, if you guys make Inferno Shot AoE, I'm going to play bow before I play Dragonlord and eat my words. And they did it, so I will be making a bow character first. But I did play around with it. It feels so good to level. It's crazy how good it feels. You don't have that situation where you're just surrounded by monsters and you're just missing shots left and right. You just like start blasting with your AoE abilities and it feels so satisfying. Now, that being said, most of these have limitations. Like this one requires you to be a paladin, or Inferno Shot costs spell points, which doesn't sound like it's a big deal. And if you have a lot of past lives, it's not. But when I tried it on a first life character, on a ranger, I had like 14 or 16 wisdom just so I could have spell points. And I ran out of mana all the time because I was just blasting this. And so you still have to think about it. So I like it. It's a good system. The AoE feels good. It's nice, and a big fan of this. Now, as I said with Pin is now the Epic Strike in Shirati Champion. The previous Epic Strike was an attack called Hunt's End, and that has since been changed. So we're going to talk about that now with the Epic Destiny refresh. So the long and short of it is that several abilities have just been moved around in the tree to line stuff up. So mantle abilities will now generally be like above one another. Epic Strike abilities will now be like connected and above one another. And if anything requires something else, it'll actually require it in the tree. So for example, if you have like a thing that says, you know, the Destiny Mantle, and then another thing that says, while in the Destiny Mantle, you gain X, those things are now going to be next to each other and connected. On top of that, they're also color-coded, so it's really easy to see. So if you don't know what affects the mantle or not, if it affects the mantle, it's going to be color-coded. So it's just visual clarity. It's just a little bit prettier, which is the starting point. Second, they also just standardized how much health and mana you get from each core. This is not good text colors, but they just standardized how much you get. No real major changes, just a couple of shifting around. And they also give more range power now to all the Epic Destinies, just to buff them up a bit. So here's where we're going to hit the big things. There are a couple nerfs in here that will kind of overshadow some of the excitement. I'm very excited about these changes, but we are going to talk about the nerfs. And on top of that, there are also a couple insane buffs. And actually, I wouldn't even want to say a couple. Most of this is buffs, but there are some bigger nerfs. So we're going to talk about that as we go. So to get started, Draconic Incarnation. Dragon Breath is being changed. So its damage, instead of being a d6 plus 10, it's now a d6 plus 5. They are cutting it in half. And the upgrade, instead of being 2 d6s plus 20, it's now 1d6 plus 10. They're cutting the damage in half. They're also reducing the cooldown to 12 seconds, but they are in fact cutting the damage in half of both Dragon Breath and the upgrades for it. They're doing this because Dragon Breath was way too strong, and it basically did more damage than pretty much everything else, because you could go into the highest difficulty Reaper 10, and with like Dragon Breath plus a spell, wipe out an entire room, and I guess they just didn't like that behavior or whatever it was, but they are nerfing it. My personal opinion, just injecting this here, I don't really care about this change. Dragon Breath is still going to be good, Draconic Incarnation is still going to be good, and Spellcasters are still going to be good. So if you're worried about your character being bricked, it's still going to work. Spellcasters are still very, very good in the highest difficulty of the game, Reaper 10. It just means you might choose some other options as opposed to defaulting to Dragon Breath, as there are a lot of much better options down here. But again, Draconic Incarnation is still going to be powerful because, as it turns out, Ruin and Greater Ruin doing basically double damage is still really nice. However, there's a second nerf to this, which is that Dragon Breath now has its intended maximum catch level of 20 to match the other Epic Strikes. So for those of you that are just kind of new to this, maximum catch level basically means when the spell stops gaining damage from leveling up. And Epic Strikes are based off of your level. What this means is that the damage is basically capped at level 20, and it doesn't really increase as you level up. It technically does, because every 2 levels you gain 1 extra maximum catch level. So level 32, this will be a level 26 spell. But it means it'll be a very gradual increase, and it's not going to be as satisfying. This used to previously have a maximum catch level of 30. So the damage is actually coming down by 50%, and then also going from maximum catcher level 36 down to 26. So a bit of a decrease in damage again on top of that. Again, this ability is still going to be good. People are still going to be playing it. However, I'm not a big fan of the maximum catch level thing. I don't really want to get into it, but overall, in general, I think that the abilities here, Dragon Breath's damage coming down puts it more in line with some of the other abilities, and as we'll talk about later, there are some other interesting abilities. So, can you still play Draconic Incarnation? Yes. Is it still going to work very well? Yes. The Mantle is still incredibly good. The rest of the passes in the tree are good. Ruin and Greater Ruin are really good. The epic moment that turns everything to gold for 30 seconds with no save is insane. And Dragon Breath is still going to be powerful. It's effectively a 10th level spell now, which you would press. So, it got nerfed, but it's still going to be powerful, which just goes to show how powerful that ability was. All right, moving on. Fatesinger. In general, they just made a couple changes here, which is that The Discord abilities and like some of the DCs were just like not using the right bonuses. So now the attacks are going to use the highest stat that you have for calculating the DC, as opposed to they had like a weird list of like strength, dex, intelligence, charisma, and they left out wisdom, constitution. And so some classes couldn't use it. Anyway, they're just getting rid of that. And then the spells will all scale off of intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, so anyone can use it. They're buffing up the damage of Strike Accord. They're making it so that you can double the damage for all epic strikes in the tree. And if I'm being honest, Master the Acoustics is really, really, really crazy. With Master the Acoustics and the buffs to Pluck a String and the Sword Sings, you're going to be doing way more damage, and you will see a lot of melee characters swapping into using the Strike Accord as well as Pluck a String and Sword Sings. A lot of people are going to be swapping these abilities. It is a major buff to the epic strikes of Fatesinger. A lot of extra damage. So if you've read any of my guides, I recommend when you start in epics to go with Fatesinger at the beginning on any melee character. It's just a powerful effect, really good epic strike on a short cooldown. Yeah, they just increased the threat range and doubled the damage, so it's going to be even better. Also, Arrow of Discord, one of the follow-ups, is now an area of effect attack, so ranged characters now have an AoE stun, which is also fantastic. So all good stuff all around, big buffs to Fatesinger, and Fatesinger is going to be more satisfying. Now, Magus the Eclipse got so many changes, it's really hard for me to talk about, but basically, they buffed the hell out of the epic strikes, so they do way more damage now. On top of that, they buffed all the abilities that correspond with the epic strikes, which is very convenient. And they made it so that the epic Destiny mantle, previously it was this weird thing where it would give you like an aura around your character and nothing else, which is not as satisfying. So they've changed it, so now you can choose whether you have the aura of damage around your character, or you can have the same mantle effect you get from other trees, which is when you apply a cold or negative spell, it deals extra damage based on your level, which is what you get from all of the other epic Destinies. They all have that type of mantle. So it makes it significantly more valuable. On top of that, they just shuffled some things around, buffed some numbers, added more numbers, buffed some numbers. They reduced the cost of some things, and Arcane Pulse, they buffed it, and Improved Arcane Pulse has been buffed, and it's still a bad spell and enhancement, so don't take it. So overall, Magus the Eclipse, gigantic increase in power. The reason why this power increase matters, and some people might think, oh, but it's only a D8 plus 8 damage, or if you get tier 5, the epic strike is a single target D12 plus 16. That's not a crazy amount of damage. The thing you have to remember is that this tree, Magus the Eclipse, has a tier 5 ability called Time Stop, where you stop everything in time, including raid bosses, and then things take extra damage. And basically, if you wanted to have that in your raid group or in your high-end piece of content, somebody had to throw away their whole tree, taking basically nothing out of Magus the Eclipse just to get it. And now, a lot of the stuff in Magus the Eclipse is much more appealing and much stronger, which means the cost to get Time Stop is significantly lower. In fact, you'll probably see people just running Magus the Eclipse now, and then just getting Time Stop on top of the other things that they get, which is very cool. So big buffs to Magus the Eclipse, absolutely massive. There's also this wacky ability where it says, while in your epic Destiny mantle, you gain spell resistance, magic resistance rating, and magic resistance rating cap equal to 3 times the number of meta magic feats you've acquired. Which is the thing, we've never had things that scale off of the number of meta magic feats you have. Very cool. Magus the Eclipse, give it a shot. I'll be trying it out as well. Macrotech, they basically just swapped the places of the Hammer Time spells and the epic strikes. The cooldowns. So the hammer spells go up to 15 seconds, and the epic strikes go down in cooldown. And on top of that, they also have they buff the damage of the epic strikes in tier 4, and Rune Arm use lets you use any stat you want. TLDR, the Hammer Time spells from Macrotech are just great. They're basically just 6th level spells that had a 10-second cooldown. You could apply all your meta magics to, and almost every spellcaster in the game can make use of them. So they just nerfed them a little bit to make the epic strikes more appealing. I very recently did an Artificer build on hardcore, and I found the epic strikes were really powerful, and so the cooldown coming down by 5 seconds is massive. So that's going to be very, very good for the Macrotech. A Divine Crusader, doesn't matter. Exalted Angel is also receiving a bunch of changes. There is a nerf in the tree. Holy Fireball is going down in damage. It used to do a d6 plus 9 fire and light, and now it is going down to a d6 plus 4 fire and light. So this is still an okay amount of damage. It is just confusing why it came down in damage so much, so I don't really love that, but whatever. Holy Fireball is still pretty reasonable to use. It's just not something you're going to want to be... It's not like you don't take the whole tree just to get Holy Fireball, whereas back in the day, you would take the whole tree just to get Holy Fireball in some cases. So now it's just icing on the cake. Still a nice spell to have, but not as universally overpowering as it used to be before. Now, the main thing that they're changing in the tree, other than buffing out Sun Pillar and Flame Pillar, because these abilities suck, is the mantle. So Epic Exalted Angel's biggest appeal for the mantle was that it would have a passive healing aura where you would just stand around and heal yourself and all your allies. That has since been removed entirely from the game. It doesn't do that. And now you have two versions of the mantle. The old version of the mantle, in which you cast a fire spell or a light spell and it does extra damage, or you cast a healing spell and you get extra healing. Or a new form of the mantle called Wrathful Form, where when you cast a fire, light, alignment, or positive spell, you get surrounded by fire, which deals damage to all enemies that are nearby you. And on top of that, it can extend the duration. And then it just passively makes your spells heal for more. So while you have the effect active, your spells also heal for more. So the idea is you can kind of get this fiery aura that develops around your character, and as long as you're in melee range, you can be damaging enemies, and your spells will heal your allies for more as well. And then on top of that, your Wrathful Form and Angelic Form will apply Consecrated Cinders to enemies and Consecrated Sparks to allies. So they're basically going to be debuffing the defenses of enemies and buffing the defenses of your allies. If you're using the regular mantle, where it only applies on individual spellcasts, you'll have to heal an ally to then apply Consecrated Cinders to them, and you'll have to damage an enemy to apply Wrathful, or the Consecrated Cinders or Consecrated Sparks. Whereas with the new version, which is just a passive aura around you, if the aura is around the enemies, they will take those extra effects. A couple of other things that they changed in here. They buff Shadows Upon You, so it also reduces enemy defenses on top of saves. Shadows Upon You was always good, and now it's better, so great job. And then the big thing, this is massive, massive, massive. The epic Destiny moment and Turn Undead. So Bane of Undeath basically gave you bonuses with turning. Now you can use your character level instead of your class level for Turn Undead, which means any charisma-based character in the game can turn undead now using Exalted Angel. And Ascendance, the epic moment, has been completely reworked. It used to give you like this ring around your character that was basically useless and sucked. And so nobody would use it. It was easily the worst epic moment in the game. No exceptions, just the worst one by 100 miles. Now, it's probably the best one. First, it makes your single target cure spells apply on all allies, no matter where you cast it. Which means, let's say you're in a adventure zone, okay, you're doing Orchard Slayer's gigantic map, and somebody is dying, you press your Ascendance, you click on yourself, and you cast Cure Light Wounds. It applies to you and everyone in the group. As long as you're in the same dungeon, no matter what the distance is, no matter whether you can see them, you heal yourself, and it heals everybody. This is great for doing stuff like Fires of Wargrave, where you have people in different areas of these, like the large platform, killing stuff. You can heal yourself to heal them. Areas such as the what's that raid called? Skeleton one, Skeletons in the Closet, where you have people running around the edges, breaking the curses, and you can just spam heal yourself to keep people alive. Stuff like that, very, very cool. However, on top of that, when you raise anybody, they also come back to full life, like True Resurrection, even if you use Raise Dead and Resurrection. And finally, you can now turn anything in the game for those 20 seconds. So, in a raid, you can use this to heal yourself and all allies, which is super convenient. The True Resurrection thing will probably never come up. It's nice, I just don't imagine this would ever really happen. And then the Turn Undead thing means if you're playing Cleric, or really any character who goes tier 5, just slap on a turning item, go into an R10 quest, and then press your epic moment, and then run through the quest, spamming Turn Undead, and just clearing rooms quickly. Bear in mind, there still is a target cap for Turn Undead. You'll likely only turn 2 or 3 creatures, so you'd have to have a way to manage that. But still, you're going to be just ripping through monsters with turns. Very, very powerful, very, very cool. So, Ascendance, amazing epic moment. I can't wait to see it in action. Also, they buffed the hell out of Chain Cure. So Chain Cure just always lands. It used to miss constantly, where you would try to Chain Cure somebody, and so I never used it, and I could not get it to miss on the preview. I tried everything. I tried like 2 people moving, 1 person dashing while I was dashing, and I was chain curing them. And the beam of cure hits them and starts chaining to other people. Chain Cure, now very powerful. Will you see people use it? I don't know. But it's really good now, so I've always wanted to use it, but the missing is just kind of disappointing. Grandmaster Flowers, they buffed Drifting Lotus to do more damage. They buffed Orchid Blossom to do more damage. And then the cooldown of Inner Focus and Holding to the Spirit is still too high. But 60 seconds is way better than 120, but it's still too high, so what are you going to do? Legendary Dreadnought, they talked about the range stuff, and also they buffed Melee Dire Charge to do more damage. Shadow Dancer, they moved around a bunch of stuff. The cooldown of the Shadow Dancer Epic Strikes is now 8 seconds instead of 15. This means you can have 100% uptime of the bonuses from the Shadow Dancer Epic Strikes. That's the dodge bonus, that's the extra sneak attack damage, which makes this significantly better than before. One of the problems with the Shadow Dancer damage bonus, where you get to add your sneak attack damage again on your attacks and spells, is that it only applies once per second, but this, so you can't like hit it and then spam attacks and get all this extra damage. It only applies once every second. However, the even bigger problem is that it doesn't have 100% uptime. So if you're attacking like a big target, you have to know that 5 seconds out of every 15, you don't have that buff. Now, you don't have to worry about it, which means Spellcaster Shadow Dancer, somebody who is applying sneak attack damage to spells, is now on the table as a thing you can do, because you can keep that up the entire time, which is pretty neat. On top of that, they just buffed up a couple of different abilities. Shadow Strike is now ranged. They buffed up some of the Mantle a little bit, although it's still pretty bad, and I don't really care about that. The Mantle is still bad, and you're not going to want to take it. However, Weird is now a spell-like ability. So for those of you that are excited about Caster Fighter and Dark Hunter Caster Ranger, Weird now fits into those builds. So I'll be making a video soon about those things. Fury of the Wild, they buffed Great Leveler, so it just has a save on it all the time. They nerfed Adrenaline to 9-second cooldown, and they super buffed Quick Cutter. I'm not going to go into it, but Quick Cutter is now a whirlwind attack. It's really, 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 really good, and when you're an epic melee character, I recommend either Quick Cutter or Fatesinger Epic Strikes. Try both of those, see which one you like, and then use those. Quick Cutter's insane for leveling. God tier, big fan. Primal Avatar. They buffed the damage of the Epic Strikes that no one uses, Spring to Summer and Stormcatcher, and they still kind of suck, so it is what it is. Carrion Swarm now has a saving throw, and the damage is lower. Some of you might be worried that the fun tank build that I wrote, a lot of people wrote to me in concern, saying like, oh, they're killing it, they're going to remove it, they're going to destroy it. Please understand, I wrote the fun tank before the release of Epic Destinies, this like when it was still on Lemania, the first time in 2021. It is okay that that build is getting nerfed, and by the way, it's way better if you just use Macro Tech. I will be doing a new fun tank in the future using Macro Tech, so if you're like, oh no, the build is destroyed, how am I going to... It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's still good. But they are nerfing it. And also, stuff that's not in here, they rearranged the tree. So it's just cleaner now. And you also don't need to take the Epic Strikes if you just want the higher level abilities. So if you want Shardstorm or Reborn in Flame or Thunder Snow, you don't have to take the abilities here, which is just nice. You don't have to take the Epic Strikes if you don't want to, which is the problem I had before. Okay, Shrouded Champion. They're making a bunch of changes. Where do I even start? So the biggest one we're going to talk about first, which is Hunt's End, which is here. So Hunt's End, the way it used to work was like how Adrenaline still works in game, which is you press a button, it gives you a buff. It makes your next attack crit and do 5 times damage. So you would press Hunt's End, it gives you the buff, and then you would take an attack that has extra critical multiplier on it, like Exposing Strike, or I guess it's called Sniper Shot from Deepwood Stalker, and then that ability has +2 critical threat multiplier, so then you press the button and your ×5 bow shot becomes a ×7 bow shot that is guaranteed to crit, so it does 7 times damage, and then that damage is multiplied by 5 times again. And that is where you would see people getting hundreds of percents of numbers, where they would have like, oh, like a 200,000 bow hit and stuff like that. That is changing, so now Hunt's End is just an attack. So instead of being able to combo, you can't combo now. It is just an attack that crits that does 250% damage. This is still a powerful ability, and because Hunt's End is an attack, things that have repeated hits, such as like repeating crossbow and inquisitive, now get the damage on both attacks as opposed to just the first hit. So it's a buff for those class types, but the rest of the characters, not as much. Since you can't combo it, it means you're missing out on a big chunk of that damage. Instead of hitting for 100,000 damage, you're now going to be using Hunt's End for 40,000 damage and have to do something else in there to kind of make up the difference. So how are they making up the difference, and why did they do this? The long and short of it is that Hunt's End has the problem where if you would apply Hunt's End and then use one of the new ranged attacks, it would do the Hunt's End damage to every target, and that was a problem, and I guess they couldn't stop that from happening and only deal damage to the first target, and so they have relegated Hunt's End to a ranged attack. So this is going to be a direct nerf to ranged characters. This is one of the other major nerfs that is in this patch. However, just being the optimist here, as somebody who hated playing ranged anyway, in terms of the usability, you now have AoE attacks on ranged characters. So for the sacrifice of Hunt's End, which was very limiting on design space, because everything had to think of, well, how does this fit into Hunt's End? How do all the new ranged attacks fit into Hunt's End? They basically just removed that problem and made it an attack. And because it's not an epic strike anymore, you can just take one of the other ones. So without Hunt's End, you can now include the Shadow Dancer strike and get extra sneak attack damage on all of your attacks, plus its AoE. You can get Dreadnought to have a ranged AoE stun, which is not too bad. There's probably other stuff I'm not thinking about. I don't play ranged characters, I just don't care that much. Pin is now the epic strike from Shrine Champion, and it's an AoE, and it's an AoE slow or an AoE dance, which again, could also be quite good. So the damage of ranged characters is going to be coming down. They've said that they're going to be looking into the damage of ranged characters in the future. They did a small buff, so now you're going to be getting more ranged power from each of the cores of these trees. Now, granted, that's going to come out in the wash to like 6 extra range power, so it's not, kind of replacing it. But overall, it's something they're looking at. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so now, unfortunately, it is a nerf to the damage, but you now have the ability to take Hunt's End plus something else. So in a non-raid scenario, if you're doing R10s or something like that, being able to press Dire Shot and just instantly knock down or stun every monster is on the table and something you can now do as a ranged character, which you couldn't do before. So it opens up a lot of doors in there. For endgame, sit in one spot, shoot the raid boss DPS. Your damage is going to go down, and it is what it is. Speaking of other changes in the tree, they're also making it so Phaelites deals some damage. However, if it deals D3 force damage per level, but if you change your element in the mantle, it'll actually use that element instead. So if you choose like the Sonic Mantle version of Shradi Champion, Phaelites now will do Sonic damage, which is kind of cool. They also, I'm not going to go through the rest of these changes, but they also made it so that all throughout the tree, one of the biggest problems with Shradi Champion is it was basically impossible to get to tier 4. I'm actually just going to show it off here, because it's probably the worst offender of this. But basically, in tier 4, if you're a spellcaster, because it's supposed to be spellcaster adjacent, like ranged only, thrower only. And so that was a big problem. And so they've basically just made it so every point in here that is specifically ranged only, like this double shot node here, is now double shot or something. So it can give you something for spellcasters. Track now works on spells. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. And also they giga-buff Track. I don't know what happened. If somebody hit their head, I don't know what's going on. But Track, where is it in here? Track now works on harmful spellcasts and reduce saves by 1. For those people that don't know, this ability, it just makes it so that you reduce enemy armor class and fortification by 1 per hit. Now it also reduces saves and stacks up to 10 times. So if you hit a monster 10 times, they get minus 10 to their saves. Like, that's insane to me. So great. Super, super good. Very, very good for ranged characters. And then on Yielding Sentinel, Celestial Mandate now does more damage. It gives plus 30 to hit. And Throw the Boom, which is the shield throw, now has a separate ability from Might's Challenge, which means that you can choose whether you want a single target or AoE. If you don't really understand why that's important, it's a tank thing. Every tank I've talked to is very excited about this change, because you can decide, do I want to pull one monster out of the group? If you're two tanks in a raid, you need to move one monster, you can do that. Or do you want to grab a whole group of aggro? You can choose. So very, very cool. All right. Next up, Tavern System updates. I've never seen this. Tavern Keepers, an update of quest list. Okay, so in taverns, if you did not know, in the harbor, you can talk to any tavern keep, and they'll actually tell you where to go to get quests now. So if you go into like the Leaky Dinghy and talk to the tavern owner, they'll actually tell you where to get quests, and they'll put markers on your map, which is super cool. On top of that, the Marketplace Tavern Keepers will now do that as well. So I think they're going to keep expanding it out to Tavern Keepers. So if you're a newer player and you somehow got like 37 minutes deep into a patch note review video, just bear in mind, you can talk to Tavern Keepers and they'll tell you where to get quests, which is very cool, and they're going to keep expanding it. What else have they been done? They also revamped Explosive Situations, Sunken Sewer, and Missing in Action. Sick. Well, I'm going to do those. That sounds cool. All right, tumbling. So, if you've played DDO over the past 3 months, they made an experimental tumble change. So now you could just press tumble and while moving, and your character would roll while moving. It was really cool because it means you could use it for mobility. You can now actually tumble through a trap to avoid damage. You could tumble away from a monster effect. When the raid Fires of a Moorgrave released, there were these stretches that would come out and explode, dealing damage to everybody that was in the circle. And with tumble, it actually got you out quick enough so that way you would take no damage and you don't have to worry about trying to make sure you have enough run speed to get out. Problem is, people realized that you could chain it together and you could move at over 230% total movement speed, which is faster than the fastest horses in the game. SSG didn't like that, but they wanted to keep the tumbling thing active. So they have made a change. It's a half step. Tumbling now has tumble charges. So you can't tumble unless you have a tumble charge, and you expend a tumble charge by tumbling. This does not affect you if you don't have like points in tumble and you do that little shuffle. You actually have to put points in the tree and be able, or in the skill and be able to use tumble. You have 2 charges, and they come back once every 8 seconds. So, it is what it is. However, you can get more charges. Thief Acrobat gets you one, and the mobility feat gets you a tumble charge. This also works with items that have the mobility feat on them. So like bracers, there's like the ventilator bracers that have mobility. They will also give you an extra tumble charge. You can also view your tumble charges when you're blocking. I don't know if they made it so you can view it by default. That was a big problem, is you couldn't see when you actually had charges. So I hope they have adjusted that here. It's not in here, but we'll see. It was a big complaint that I and many other people had. However, tumbling now gives you defensive bonuses. So some of you might be like, this is just worse. Not really. So now when you tumble, you gain bonuses during your tumble animation. So you get 95% uncapped dodge in light or no armor, 75% uncapped dodge in medium, and 50% uncapped dodge in heavy armor for 1 second. Have you ever played a Dark Souls, and you know when the monster's coming down to bring an attack, and you just press tumble and your character jumps out of the way and you take no damage because you have immunity frames? Congratulations, we have that in DDO. If a monster is bringing down the hammer, you can press tumble, have 95% uncapped dodge, and just take no damage from the attack. I tested this out very rigorously on the preview server, and it is amazing. It feels so satisfying. I played it as an archer, and when a bunch of monsters were about to swing, the ogre's getting ready to do the 1-2-3 combo, you just tumble away and you see dodge, dodge, dodge. It is so satisfying, it's so good, and it makes DDO feel more like an action game. On top of that, you gain a bonus to reflex saving throws equal to your tumble skill for that 1 second. Now, the reason why that matters is you can now tumble through traps, and it reduces the damage that you take. It heavily increases the chance that you make your saving throw, and if you have evasion, it means you only really take extra damage if you roll a 1. One of the problems I've always had with Hardcore League is people will ask me, okay, can I take like 2 levels of Rogue to get evasion so I can deal with traps? But they're asking me like from a cleric's perspective, and your 18 cleric to rogue is not going to have any dexterity, it's not going to have any reflex saves, you're going to fail every saving throw. So it's a bad idea. But if you put points in tumble, or you buy tumble potions, then when you see the trap ahead of you, you can now drink a tumble potion, or get house P buffs for the tumble, then tumble through the trap, and you're going to get like an extra plus 20 onto your saving throw, and actually make the save because you're planning to tumble through the trap. And some people might think, oh, well, that seems kind of overpowered. You can basically negate every trap. But that's if you know it's there, and you press the button to tumble. You plan for it, you prepare for it, and you can now deal with it. This change is so cool, and it's going to make the game way more fun for me and hopefully a lot of other people. So RIP, the fast tumbling where you just zoom, zoom, zoom through every quest in the game. But now we have an actual usable ability that is sick. So I'm very excited about that. And now we have stuff. So gameplay and balance. Sacred Fist 12 is now prerequisite for the epic martial arts and vorpal strikes. Basically, the unarmed feats, you couldn't take them on Sacred Fist. Now you can. The epic feats. Now the Chalice Exalted Cleave got a buff. Morgrave University Tier 4 Favor is now available. I don't even know what that is. We'll find out. There's a lever that will reset the light puzzle step in Grand Theft Orion. So the light puzzle, by the way, is just hit each button once. Just save you some time. Arcane Archer's Arrow of Slaying does 250% damage and flat 25, which is before crits and scaling. I think somebody did the math on this and found out that it's worse most of the time, which is confusing. Arcane Archer's Final Strike has been renamed to Opening Volley. Okay, interesting. So they called it Final Strike up there, but they didn't have it. Whatever, it's fine. It is now Opening Volley, so great. And Arcane Archer's Inferno Shot has been renamed Elemental Inferno. The damage over time's damage now scales with spell power, the relevant one, and the damage over time deals fire damage on hit, and over time, if you have Arcane Archer's Fire Imbue toggled on, or none of them. But if you use Cold, Electric, or Acid, or Force, it has a relevant imbue. That's sick. So instead of having Fireball Arrow, you have Elemental Arrow, that if you're using like Acid, let's say you're playing Strimtom's Acid Arrow, I don't know, whatever, then you pick the Acid Imbue, then when you click Inferno Shot, which is now Elemental Inferno, it'll do an AoE Acid Blast. Very cool, 10 out of 10, great design, I love it. I'm probably going to try the Force one and see how it works. All right, and then bug fixes. There's a lot of bug fixes. Dreadsea Scrolls, blah, blah, blah. I'm just looking for something that's important. Anything that is relevant here that's like super. Iron Skin Tier 2 now functions. Basically, you wouldn't get the Sacred Fist thing. Spellslinger's Cure Wounds mass actually works when it wasn't on Undead. You gain Force Spell Power and Force Catch levels with Season's Herald. This bug has been here forever. This basically just makes Blightcaster better. So that's kind of cool. You can use large meta magic on Bestow Curse, no one cares. They fix it so Poison Shot now works with Dual Crossbow. There's a bunch of abilities that don't work with Dual Crossbow. If you find one, please report it. I don't play Dual Crossbow, but I did find that a bunch of abilities didn't fire properly. It now works with Poison Shot. Death Salve also functions, where you can turn your allies undead. This is the Apothecary ability from Alchemist. To be fair, I ain't tested it either. So even though Alchemist has been in the game for like 3 years, I've never cast the spell. So the fact that it didn't work isn't a surprise to me. I don't know who else would actually use it. So there's that. Something, boring stuff, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Stormsinger's Lightning Strike now works. So for those of you that didn't know, this is actually a really big one. So the Stormsinger, Bard, Stormsinger tree, that's Spellsinger, Stormsinger ST. For each core, you get Lightning Strike, so it has a 20% chance to deal damage to an enemy when you crit them, and the damage is supposed to go up in damage as you get higher level. It actually never did that. Now it does, so which is good. Which literally triples the damage of the ability. It's pretty nice to have. So we'll see how that actually comes out in the wash. Anything else important? Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of boring stuff. Escalation now more accurate directional targeting. This is a huge one. One of the reasons why I've never used the spell-like abilities or recommended anyone to ever use the spell-like abilities out of the Sorcerer trees, and why I say the Sorcerer Fireball spell-like ability is straight up bad is because of targeting problems. Spell-like abilities across the board sometimes won't ground target. What that means is that if you're aiming downwards, they'll still throw forwards for whatever reason. Now, all spell-like abilities in the game will target the direction you're facing. The reason why this is important is because in a lot of cases, if you have an enemy here and you have an enemy here, you want to place a fireball in between, right where my face is, so that way you can actually hit both of the enemies. Because if you target one or the other, you're only going to hit one of the two, and you spend a lot more spell points. And these SLAs that don't respect up or down targeting is a big problem, and that should be fixed, which is nice. Some other bugs. There's also a curse thing. So there was a bug with the card of curse cleansing, and basically there's a thing that could let you put extra curses on items. They fixed that bug, so there's that. And most of the stuff. SLA uses fear bonuses. I didn't realize it didn't. Divine Disciple's Shield of Dawn now correctly scales with light spell power. Dragon Breath now functions while moving, which is great. Cool. And, added attacks that added bonus damage now correctly increase that damage on a double strike or double shot. This was a huge bug. It's one of the reasons why things that had extra damage weren't as valuable for double strike and double shot, and now that has been fixed, so that's good. And then lastly here, great change with the tooltip update. This is just for clarity, but basically the tooltips are now cleaner. So all the tooltips in the game are cleaner. So things that, for example, spell resistance is going to be color-coded, so it's easy to see. If something costs mana, if something costs key, if something costs health, it'll be color-coded. The DCs will be color-coded. There's a bunch of stuff is going to be color-coded. It's going to look really pretty, really nice. Huge fan of this, and they're just making a lot of the tooltips just cleaner all throughout the game. You'll notice it immediately when you log in that the tooltips are cleaner, and if you're a newer player, the game is just going to be easier to understand. So store open sessions, I don't care. Guild buffs now properly hidden in the examination window. Directional arrows for hirelings on the map and main map are now the proper color. LFM UI is default page. Oh yeah, so now the broken LFM problem, they're trying to fix it, so hopefully that will be good. There's a new button in the guild window to send a tell, which is just crazy to me. So now you don't have to like see a guild member's name and then go in the chat and type in the name. You can just click on the guild member, click the tell button, and it auto puts it in the chat. Guys, we live in the future. Holy moly, DDO gets better by the day. And melee attack bonus, melee damage bonus, and range attack bonus are now in the plus tab. That's actually great. Anyway, so thank you for sticking around for 48 minutes, oh my god, of patch notes. And overall, I know some people are going to get bogged down, and I'm not going to let anybody bog me down, by some of the changes where, like, Dragon Breath do lessy damagey, Exalted Angel is no longer getting the healing thing, and Shrouded Champion, somewhere in here, damage go down with Hunt's End. But being honest, these changes are adding so many cool abilities to the game, so many buffs, so many upgrades. Dragonlord looks sick. I'm super stoked to play around with some of the other epic Destinies. AoE bow attacks are so satisfying, and the tumbling is awesome. Plus, also, some of these just basic changes, like the quality of life and bug fixes, really, really good. So, overall, I'm stoked for the patch. So, as a quick reminder, just a quick catch-up in case you just want the TLDR, Dragonlord's coming out. They're revamping a bunch of epic Destinies and doing a bunch of buffs to stuff and a couple nerfs. AoE range attacks are coming. Tooltips are going to look extra pretty. Somewhere in here. You can now Dark Souls Tumble. Apparently they're redoing the Sunken Sewer, which is just blowing my mind right now. A couple of bug fixes, and make sure you claim your stuff in the Hall of Heroes. If you watch this video and you can log into DDO, please go talk to Zatharal in the Hall of Heroes. Talk to Zatharal in the Hall of Heroes. Talk to him in the Hall of Heroes. Go get your stuff. You're going to have to do that every month to collect something. Free stuff. Free stuff is good. Good free stuff. Good free stuff. Anyway, this has been me, guy who talked for nearly an hour about patch notes, and I'm going to catch you guys next time. Bye-bye, au revoir, see you later, see you in game. I can't wait to play more game.